This is Abraham L. Funchess Jr. I'm the pastor here at Jubilee UMC Freedom Center. Right now, I'm in the Hazel Dorothy Scott Hall, and pictured right behind me is Hazel Dorothy Scott, the musician, the amazing activist who was married to the powerful legislator Adam Clayton Powell. I think that Hazel Dorothy Scott kind of signifies what we want to do here, in addition to building up the faith community with good preaching and singing and so forth. We also want to, center liberation practice. And one of the ways that we thought that we can put into practice liberation study, liberation talk, is by developing drama. And so this is what we've done here at Jubilee. We have started Liberation on Stage. And we started a play called If God Still Breathes, Why Can't I? And so the production was put on one Saturday night not too long ago. And it started with a rendition of James Weldon Johnson's The Crucifixion, done by Minister Chastity Chastity Martin. And then secondly, the second scene was, in fact, If God Still Breathes, Why Can't I? Written by yours truly, that engaged 7 lay people. Critical to any exploration of new ministry opportunities is to undergo a lady revolution, where the people are empowered to do ministry work in order to reach the masses. And so that's what we've started out doing, and it was fun. And then, of course, lastly, we concluded with James Weldon Johnson, The Judgment Day, performed by Elder Torres Suddeth. He's tall, he's big, he's eloquent, and I think that he ministered to a lot of people. So this is what you're about to see. Liberation on Stage, a dramatic ministry for justice. In this proposal, and then of course we've done it now, and it's so fascinating. We have a Black congregation that uses the medium of drama to intrigue, educate, and entertain audiences around critical biblical passages that speak to liberation and justice. Rooted in the Black church tradition and guided by Black scholars and artists, this ministry will bring scripture to life on stage so that people not only hear the word, but they see it and they feel it embodied. Howard Thurman reminds us in Jesus and the Disinherited that the gospel speaks directly to those whose backs are against the wall. Our dramatic ministry will center texts such as Exodus 3, Amos 5:24, Luke 4:16-21, and of course, John chapter 8, verse 32, presenting them through short plays, readers' theater, and monologues that highlight God's concern for the oppressed and the marginalized. James Cone's insistence that God is on the side of the oppressed, and Dolores Williams' rereading of Hagar as a Black woman survivor story will guide how we interpret and dramatize these passages so that they speak to mass incarceration, police violence, economic inequality, gender depression, war, and domestic violence. The artistic framework for this ministry draws inspiration from James Weldon Johnson's God's Trombones, where sermons become poetic performances. His work demonstrates that the preacher's voice and the people's stories are themselves sacred drama. Lisa Allen McLaurin's scholarship on African American worship and the arts undergirds our conviction that drama is not an extra, but is a core expression of Black liturgical life. Building on this, we will develop performances integrated into worship, sermon starters, liturgical sketches, and standalone community events like evening performances followed by town hall conversations. Here's the objective of this project, this ministry. We want to intrigue and engage congregation and community members by presenting scripture through culturally resonant dramatic forms. We want to educate audiences on liberation justice themes in the Bible, drawing on Black theological and ethical traditions. We want to entertain with purpose, using humor, music, movement, and story, so learning feels accessible and communal. And of course, we want to empower the participants, especially youth and young adults, to see themselves as agents in God's liberating work. By weaving together scripture, Black theological insight, and dramatic artistry, liberation on stage will help our congregation proclaim a gospel that is not only preached from the pulpit, but embodied on the stage and ultimately lived in the streets. All right, and thank you. So by now you have seen, what we've done in order to breathe existential expression into a theatrical production known as Liberation on Stage. If God still breathes, then why can't I? And of course, I certainly want to thank Sharon Mormon, which is proof positive that there's genius latent in the community. He was the videographer and photographer for this particular project. I want to thank my prophetic fraternity brother, the Reverend Dr. Michael D. Blackwell, and all of the actors who were participants in the production. Thank you. And of course, we certainly want to thank the beloved congregation of Jubilee United Methodist Church. With respect to closing and dealing creatively with the capstone competencies that we want to address, with community building, the capstone fosters community building through shared reflection, truth-telling, healing, drama, theology, and dialogue. Liberation on Stage invites people into beloved community, where liberation is communal, not individual. In the spirit of Sankofa, it calls us to reclaim memory, seek justice, and trust God's power to free the oppressed. After all, we want justice to roll down like waters, Amos, and righteousness, or should we say justice, like an ever-flowing stream. We want the Lucan God to release the captives, restore sight for the blind, liberate the oppressed. In other words, like James Baldwin, we want folk just when they thought they were lost to feel that their dungeons shook and their chains fell off. And as the Johannine truth hits us all, the truth will set us free and bring about the liberation that we so desperately need and seek in our lives. With respect to story linking shapes this capstone by connecting biblical witness, Black lived experience, personal testimony, and present struggles for justice. If God still breathes, why can't I? Join sacred and contemporary stories. Through Sankofa, it retrieves ancestral wisdom, helping audiences find meaning, memory, and transformation within God's liberating story. With respect to interpersonal development, this capstone reflects profound interpersonal development shaped by personal disruption. In the middle of the academic semester, which by now many of you know about, I experienced job termination, and that loss created emotional, vocational, and spiritual turbulence for me. It interrupted my rhythm, challenged my confidence, forced me to confront grief, uncertainty, and vulnerability while still trying to remain faithful to my academic responsibilities. Yet this disruption also revealed my deeper reservoir of resilience and purpose. The capstone theme became personal for me. It was no longer simply a theoretical or artistic question, but a lived cry from my own spirit. In this season, the power of the HBCU experience and the understanding faculty of ITC became especially important to me. Your witness, patience, affirmation reminded me that I was not walking through this struggle alone. Your support helped me keep breathing, helped me keep writing, and helped me keep believing. Through this journey, I have grown in self-awareness, emotional honesty, endurance, and a clearer sense of calling. In many ways, this growth reflects the significance of Sankofa. I have had to look back over my life, my calling, my formation, and my inherited strengths in order to move forward with greater clarity. Sankofa reminds me that what seemed like interruption can also become retrieval, as I was mentored, as I was told, a reclaiming of identity, a reclaiming of purpose, and a reclaiming of sacred breath. And then finally, critical thinking. Critical thinking appears in this capstone through its engagement with theology, performance, justice, Black communal struggle. I mean, it begs the questions: why are our soldiers over in Iran and overseas rationing food? What kind of injustice is this? Why do we seem to talk more about Justin, the perpetrator of the violence, as opposed to talking about Serena and the children, the victims of the violence? What's going on with Shamar down in Shreveport, Louisiana? What mental health catastrophic piece drove him to kill 8 beautiful little Black babies? These are the kinds of questions that we hope that this kind of work helps us wrestle with as we work to transform community. It examines both personal pain and oppressive systems that restrict breath and dignity. By bringing scripture, liberation thought, dramatic interpretation, and Sankofa together, it calls for deeper analysis rooted in truth and transformation. All of these issues conjoin to help us locally here at Jubilee UMC, where we are the geographical center of 6 neighborhood coalitions in a community of 68,000 here in the city of Waterloo. 17% of those African Americans, 5% Hispanic, and we need to come together to find our voice, find our strength, find our collective strength as we understand the importance of exercising the franchise, because now more than ever, the vote is absolutely critical if we want to bring and create a better world in which we can all live. We need to fight domestic violence as we see the ravages of policy violence and its effect that it has on community everywhere. So we're hoping that Augusta Boal was right when he talked about theater of the oppressed. We all become more active when we act out what we think is critically important, and as a result, we bring about community transformation as we engage in the truth-telling of sharing what we know to be real. I want to thank you so much for this project.